Happy New Year, Craig.
Hell yeah, Happy New Year. 2016.
This is going to be the year of many things that we'll talk about here with baseball. A lot of stuff happened in the last couple of weeks since we spoke. We spoke right before the Christmas holiday. But before we talk about all of that banter, I want to say to those of you who are listening to the show that are listening to the recorded version of the show, you'll notice that we have a new introduction, a nice
We actually, not a
musical.
new one, we have one.
Yeah, we have. That's a really good point. We have an introduction. Um, One of our longtime listeners, Josh Nelson, decided, out of the goodness of his heart, to spend a bunch of time to cut some music from a band that he was in, and that's what you're hearing at the top of the show. So, Josh, we really, really appreciated you doing that for us. It's awesome. Josh is also the voiceover there, so. That's Josh. It's J_NELSN. In case you would like to give him a follow, we really appreciated all the work.
Yeah,
And the
and you
band
will,
is The Crimson Electric, by the way, thecrimsonelectric.bandcamp.com. If you
yes,
want to
and you
check
will
them out.
also hear them rocking on a different song on our outro when we finish up the show. So we're, I believe, in our communications with Josh, when he did this completely unsolicited,
Yes.
um, we have always said we weren't sure about having music leading in or anything like that, just because we didn't know what we want. But the second we heard the songs, we knew this is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
It was
fantastic. It's great music, and he got a nice little voiceover voice right
no
there.
kidding. No kidding. So I'm sure he's available for hire, people listening.
I
But
believe he does mitzvahs, both bar and bot.
very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Uh, but yeah, we, like you said, we weren't sure if we wanted wanted an intro because we didn't know what it'd sound like. We heard it, we fell in love with it because we were kind of a fan of the cold open
Yeah.
thing. But now that we don't have the cold open thing, it's really cool.
And this helps us feign professionalism even more.
And there will be even more things to feign professionalism from coming forward from us. So there's your very vague teaser that we haven't even talked about yet.
No, that's fine. It's awesome.
So uh, on to baseball, yes.
I mean, let's do it.
Let's just dig right in. So the big news from the time that we spoke last, because it was right before the Christmas holiday, was that on New Year's Eve, Daniel Murphy became a national, uh,
Yes.
which is a thing that was much reported and rumored that the Nationals could be in, but that could be said for basically every top tier free agent. So I didn't really get much stack to it. What did you think of the Daniel Murphy deal, and were you as surprised as I was?
I was surprised just because he didn't fit the bill of the players the Nationals were reportedly interested in, such as like the Ben Zobrist type players that good, solid defense, versatile, could play many different positions, wouldn't be afraid to step aside for a player like Trey Turner come June, July, August, when it looks like, is going to be stepping into the role of starter, hopefully, for the team, barring injury. So it's just, I thought it was very interesting to see the Nationals even interested because he's really a terrible, terrible defender.
Yes.
He's not good, even a little bit. And the Nationals have been blessed with having Danny Espinosa for quite some time playing second base, where he was a shortstop playing second base, and he had the range, and it was unbelievable. And I mean, we kind of got a glimpse of it with Dan Uggla this past year, which, by the way, Dan Uggla was on the roster for the entire season.
Yeah, that was
Like,
not expected.
does that blow anyone's mind but mine? It's just Dan Ugla.
Yeah, it was it,
Amazing.
it was surprising and said I think more about what happened with the Nationals last year than anything. So
So anyway, I thought it was an interesting move. I know once it was announced, we were all curious about what the money was going to look like, because here was a player who it was looking like going to make a lot of money after at least the NLCS, when he hit home runs, and I believe it was 6 straight games, something crazy like that. So then when you got to the World Series, you saw the bad side of Daniel Murphy. So it was interesting to see the money. It's, I believe, 3 years, $37.5 million contract with
37 and a half. Yes, sir.
plenty of deferred money.
which
So
is the new thing that the learners are doing, obviously.
oh yeah, after the Scherzer contract,
Yeah.
paid out over 14 years, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah, it's really not a lot of money, so I don't have that much problem with it. But he's an offensive threat sometimes. He's a strikeout guy. He's
Yep.
a pop guy.
Uh,
So
he is not a strikeout guy,
oh well, there
as
you
a
go.
matter of fact, because I thought the exact same thing, and I am looking at his numbers right now. His career strikeout percentage is 12%.
Oh yeah,
Last year it was 7.
that's
So
not bad.
that I had the exact same thought. But on the flip side, he doesn't walk.
No.
So I mean, so that the strikeout to walk ratio for him is not ideal, but he does not strike out as much as I had the impression that he did. So I literally was going to bring up that point. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Beautiful. So, second base, to be honest, is really not one of the most defensively challenging positions.
Exactly.
So it's not the worst thing in the world, especially if you've got someone like Danny Espinosa just absolutely crushing range wise at shortstop. So, and Zimmerman, as everyone knows, at least has that third baseman's range over there at first. So I don't think the range is going to hurt. I think he's got a brick for a glove. That's going to be a little bit tough. But I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting move, and I still don't see the fit.
Yeah, I think that there was a bit of a panic situation when you looked up and down a lineup that had one left-handed batter in Bryce Harper, with knowing that you probably weren't bringing back Denard Span, which we'll obviously talk about later. But I think there was a bit of a panic move there and saying, well, we're almost out of options here. We know how much we're going to spend. This is a bargain, which it was not a bargain, but a very fair deal for both sides, I would say. And while there are a lot of things that can be said about Daniel Murphy, the person, and I think Craig might want to say some of those things.
Yes, I will.
I think the defense is really bad. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. It's really very, very bad. But he is a plus WRC plus player his entire career.
Yeah.
This is an above average offensive player. He hits for a pretty decent average. His on-base percentage is lower than I'd like it to be, but he hits for a decent average. He does not strike out all that much. I mean, I think for a 3-year deal on a guy coming off of the postseason that he had at 30 years old, I think that ultimately, as a baseball move, this was a really nice move. And I think that the Nationals have spent a lot of time, and Mike Rizzo spent a lot of time going out and looking for stellar defense from starting players. You just, anywhere you look around, from acquisitions that Mike Rizzo's made, whether it's Jose Lobaton or it is Denard Span, or the list goes on, and I'm drawing a total blank at the moment. He didn't go out and get Ian Desmond and Danny Espinosa. They were already in the organization, but the thought still stands that these guys are guys, and it's kind of what the Nationals have built their organization around. And I, quite frankly, don't have a problem with going out and getting a guy who had some success for reasonable in the postseason last year for reasonable money, that is just marginally above average with his bat, but has been literally his entire career. This is not a hot and cold kind of guy. He is going to be.
He can get hot.
He can definitely get hot, but anybody in the course of 162 games can get hot or stay cold. But he's an above average offensive player who is going to net you 150 games, 155 games every single year. So I don't know. At first I was like, this is ridiculous and this is preposterous. And then you kind of look at it and go,
I mean, the money is not bad. The money is
great.
All, considering, we saw Denard Span, who pretty much did not play the entire season, just get 3 years, $31 million from the Giants. And considering the Nationals got Murphy for $6 million more a year, I mean, when you look at it kind of that way.
If he's healthy, there is no doubt that Denard Span is a better and more valuable player at a more valuable position.
That's not in question.
I agree with you, but if he's healthy.
Right. So the money isn't bad. I'm not thrilled about wasting a draft pick on a not huge name, not huge signing thing.
Yep.
Though the Nationals do pick up draft pick compensation from the Tigers for Jordan Zimmerman, and then whoever Ian Desmond eventually signs with.
Right.
So not thrilled about losing that. What is it? I believe it was 16th overall draft pick, something
Yeah.
like that. Not thrilled about that at all, but you know what? I'll just have to lump it, I guess. But Daniel Murphy as a person, I have a much bigger problem with, and has nothing to do with the fact that he chose number 20,
Yeah. Sure.
which honestly, shruggy emoji. I mean, yes, it's Ian Desmond's number, but it's just a number.
Yeah. Adam, Jacko Beam asked a question about that. The artist formerly known as Jacko Beam asked a question about that, and so I want to hit that in the questions a little bit
Okay,
about
great.
that. So
Yeah,
why
we'll
don't
talk
why
about
don't you
that
hit
more then.
your topic real quick
Um,
about Daniel Murphy before we move on?
yeah, last year the Mets hired or had Billy Bean, the openly gay former baseballer, not the general manager of the Oakland A's, in the clubhouse doing inspirational talk about the struggles of coming out of the closet, being a gay ball player. And Daniel Murphy came out and said that he does not, quote, agree with the gay lifestyle, and that, hold on, I want to make sure I get this quote right. They being gay shouldn't completely shut the door on investing in them, but he made his thoughts very clear that he is not comfortable with having a gay person in the locker room. I'm sorry to break it to you, Daniel Murphy. You've probably already had a gay teammate, and you completely alienated him in every single way, and it's embarrassing. I understand that some certain people have religious beliefs that for some reason makes it okay for them to hate gays and be unaccepting of how people are, and that it's not a choice. I don't understand that, but that's no way to treat a human person. I don't like that atmosphere coming into a clubhouse at all. I think that just breeds resentment. And for all we know, the Nationals could have a gay player who now, seeing those comments, will not be themselves and will be uncomfortable. And it's not a healthy thing. And I think it's embarrassing that it's 2016 and people are still thinking like this with such hate and malice in their heart. It's just embarrassing to me. And I will have trouble rooting for Daniel Murphy because I don't believe it has anything to do with religion. I believe it has to do with being closed-minded. So, not a fan of Daniel Murphy, the person. Hope he does okay on the field, and that, I mean, look at Max Scherzer and his wife. Look at how active they are in DC with, let's just go ahead and say it, liberal politics. That's
Well,
probably not something that Daniel Murphy's gonna, or that Max Scherzer's gonna be comfortable having around him.
well, I obviously agree with everything you say. And I we share the same opinions on these issues, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm going to make a counter argument to be devil's advocate and say this: if you think that the people who think like we do outweigh the people that think like Daniel Murphy does in the Washington Nationals clubhouse right now, I think you're very, very sorely mistaken.
Oh no, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of ball players that think this way. I'm sure there are.
Yeah,
I'm just
and I
saying
think it would be
that
the vast majority that would think
yes,
that way. So
and I just find it very sad that
I obviously
yeah,
agree with you. Um,
people will hide behind religion to spew hate and unacceptance of someone who really is not any different from them whatsoever.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, obviously, you're right about that. I mean, there's no question in my mind. But yeah, I think Daniel Murphy is more vocal about those issues, but I don't think that he is the exception in sports in general. I think he is the rule.
I think so too, and it's sad, but that's just the way it is. But
And those times will change.
it almost comes along the same lines as Dusty Baker's comments regarding Aroldis Chapman, where sometimes it might just be better to keep your mouth shut.
Yes. There's
because he has
no
not
doubt about
endeared
that.
himself to many people after that, and it's just embarrassing. And I understand that's how he feels, and he's obviously entitled to his opinion, but it makes me sad, and it makes me not want to root for someone who is unaccepting of people because of who they love. So, not a fan of Daniel Murphy the person. I'm hoping that my mind can be changed at some point, and maybe something good can happen. Maybe he can come to a realization that they're people too, and they're worthy of respect. And what is it? What was the quote that I said? Um, shouldn't completely shut the door on investing in them. They are probably being gay people are just as worthy of investment as anyone else. So yeah,
Understood.
that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I'm hoping he can change, but I am doubtful. So it's going to be hard for me to root for someone like that, just like it would be hard for me to root for someone like Aroldis Chapman.
Understood. On to another middle infielder that sparks far less controversy, and that's Stephen Drew, who also signed a deal with the Washington Nationals coming into this year. Now, this one came out of nowhere, but he's the kind of guy. Stephen Drew is bench depth,
Yes,
and nothing more than bench depth.
cheap
There was
bench depth.
very cheap. 1 year, $3 million is about as cheap gets for a veteran middle infielder nowadays. And that's the deal that he signed with the Nationals for 2016. On also a contrast to Daniel Murphy, above average defender, which will be helpful. It'll be good to have him able to play second base or shortstop, and be above average defensively there. As for the offense, it's a bit of a Dan Uggla situation, to be totally honest with you. It's a guy who had some offensive success early in his career, and as he got older, just stopped being able to do it.
Yeah.
But and this isn't saying anything bad about Dan Uggla, people. I love Dan Uggla. He's a great guy.
Who doesn't love Dan Uggla?
Exactly. But he is Dan Uggla with better defense. So, and younger. So I think that it's
with less forearm.
Yes, which is a detractor for me.
It is actually sad. Yes, I will miss the schmedium.
Yes, me too, so much. But I like the Stephen Drew signing because it's really good depth, and I think that those are the kind of moves that you're really going to want to have. Stephen Drew is going to be your Daniel Murphy just batted in the 8th inning, and you're ahead, and you want some guy to play second base as a defensive replacement. I mean, that's that kind of move, and I really like that move for the Nationals as depth.
Yeah, I think it's great. He's exactly what the Nationals need, a veteran bench, and he fits the mold of a former Rizzo guy.
Yeah. It's Arizona, becoming a thing, right?
Yeah, it's really a thing. He loves guys that he's drafted, so he obviously knows something about Stephen Drew and likes the player and hopefully the person. So that should help. It's a great bench move, and it gives the Nationals something they lacked a little bit last year in having quality defensive replacements on the bench.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree with that.
Versatility, yay!
Versatility is good, and you saw pretty much the number one example of versatility last year was Danny Espinosa, who was able to, kind of play around where he was needed to get some space, even though there were times where he wasn't and he should have been, which is one of the factors that led to Matt Williams being fired, but that's neither here nor there. Versatility is important on a roster, and if you can't sign a guy like Ben Zobrist to the Nationals are after, in part because of his versatility, you have to fill that in other ways, and I think that Stephen Drew is a good push in doing that. So I like the signing quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely, and like we said, affordable.
Yeah, affordable is always good because it's, even though it's not my money, but affordable is good.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So on a note of former Nats moving on, we do have to spend a bit of time talking about a true former Nats great, and that's said less tongue-in-cheek than many of our former Nats greats, and that's Denard Span has officially signed a deal with the San Francisco Giants. 3 years, $31 million deal, as Craig alluded to earlier. I'll just share my general thoughts about it real quick, and that is, um, I thought a lot about this today after the deal was announced yesterday, and well, I guess mostly last night because I didn't have much time to think about it today. But Denard Span is will, without a doubt, despite the fact that he was only in DC for 3 years, be one of my favorite Washington Nationals of all time. Not only is he like a sabermetrician's dream in terms of crazy on base percentage combined with defense. Now that I know the slugging is low, but
Yeah. He's got that old man strength though.
As a leadoff hitter, I should say, he's about as perfect a leadoff hitter as you can get. And then add left-handedness and the fact that he's a center fielder. I just will always think so fondly of Denard Span, no matter what he does in the future. Not to mention, he is just a really good man. And that is the thing that's going to drive that feeling that I will have for Denard Span for the rest of his career and beyond. So I wish him all of the luck in the world, and I really hope that he enjoys his World Series this year and in 2018.
Yeah, nice. I totally glossed over that one. I adore Denard Span as well. He was one of my favorite Nationals over the past couple of years for sure. He's the best center fielder the Nationals have had without question. He provided such stability. And I loved seeing the back and forth on Twitter today with him and Bryce Harper.
I totally missed that.
Yeah, Bryce Harper just, thanked him and said he taught him so much and that he was such a great guy and a great teammate. And Denard Span was like, no, man, we each taught each other. And that was just like, dude, you're such a good guy. Yeah, he was phenomenal defensively. He had a personality, which we talk about often on this podcast. Love people, really showing the quirkiness, kind of who they are with his, his silly movie reviews.
Oh, yeah.
And you posted one of my favorite stories that just absolutely endeared me to Span from the very beginning.
And it was the first thing. Yeah, it was the first thing.
Yeah, the whole fish coming from from the sky and him being scared. And apparently I saw Alan said he's scared of snakes or something.
Yeah, some story with Alan's son, which was very funny. You should go and check that out if you're.
So yeah, it's just I love Denard Span. I wish he could have stuck around more, but just the health really kind of hurt the Nationals this year a lot. Just him not being in there really couldn't get the Nationals going offensively. So
yeah,
I mean, how do you replace a player like that with such a great eye? He's got wheels. He's a prototypical center field leadoff guy. So love him. Really, really happy to see him get 3 years. I was expecting 2, with maybe a little bit more AAV. And I think that's what you and I were talking about earlier on that. So happy to see him get that extra year of security. And like you said, 2 world championships probably in his future.
Yeah, those even year Giants. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So on a similar note, I tweeted out a day or so ago how I had some thoughts about the Nationals coming in 2016. And how my confidence in the year thinking, 2015 was just a down year and things are going to recover in 2016 and everything's going to be fine. And I was going to hit this a little bit later, but it works well after talking about Denard Span because I went back and looked at, I knew it right afterwards. I tweeted something, kind of tongue-in-cheek about the Nationals, which was, if the Nationals sign Span to a cheap deal, trade for a consistent catcher, finish out the bullpen, and pursue another starter, they'll be just fine. Flat face, closed eyes emoji guy.
And then I put hashtag or piece of cake emoji.
Yeah, and then you responded piece of cake emoji, which is hilarious. And obviously the first thing that I listed there about signing Span to a cheap deal can be crossed off that list now. And as the offseason starts to wrap up, because believe it or not, pitchers and catchers do report about a month from today.
Oh my gosh, thank God. That's the
I know,
best.
Right?
Oh,
it's a good feeling.
It's the best feeling.
But I don't think that there's any way at this point in the season that the Nationals can do enough to be the Nationals that we've expected the last 4 years. I don't think that the players are out there, and I don't think that the players exist in the organization at the moment um, that can push the Nationals to where they're going to want to be in 2016. Now, let me be clear. Does that mean I do not think the Nationals can or will make the playoffs? That is not what I am saying. The NL East is still going to be really, really bad.
Yeah, the Braves are going to be, oh, they're going to be comically bad.
The Braves are going to be incredibly bad. The Phillies are still going to be bad. The Mets are still going to be competitive, and so don't fool yourselves. The Marlins, it doesn't matter who's on their roster. They could be good. They could be bad. Nobody has any idea.
That's absolutely accurate.
Because that organization is just such a train wreck of a joke.
Yeah, but Don Mattingly, okay.
Don Mattingly. And it's just so many things.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add the note. I said on that list, tongue in cheek, but meaning it sincerely, that if the Nationals can trade for a consistent catcher, I don't know how likely it is that they'll be able to put a package together, or will be willing to put a package together that will return somebody like Jonathan Lucroy.
Yeah, I'd say more willing than.
Sure, they have the people, but are they going to be willing to do that? I would say that it's pretty unlikely.
Right.
Finishing out the bullpen means probably trading Papelbon and Storin and getting other people, and I don't know who that would be outside of Andrew Miller, and I don't think that's possible.
Right.
For the same reason as I don't think Jonathan Lucroy is going to be possible, because it's going to be all of the prospects. And Andrew Miller would be even more than Lucroy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think having a bullpen is probably more important than, a catcher, because Wilson Ramos is still a decent catcher. We just think he needs a push.
And I think Jose Lobaton is a perfectly acceptable backup, and for a backup, well above average, I would say.
Yes, I would say so. But yeah, let me speak on that as well.
Yeah.
The whole feeling a little bit, not hopeless, but less hope than I felt before about the Nationals going into the season and in the off season. And it's not just because of the Papelbon situation, and then the Bud Black situation, and now the Daniel Murphy signing, missing out on Hayward. It's those things as well. But you look at teams like the Cubs that got Hayward, that got Zobrist. They won, I think it was 98 games or something crazy last year. 96. Yep. They won a crap ton of games, and they have only gotten better. The Mets, the only player they've really lost is Daniel Murphy, and hopefully they're still in on Yoenis Cespedes, so maybe they'll keep him as well. But their pitching staff is phenomenal. The Cardinals are always good. So, and then you've got this arms race going on now in the West, where the Dodgers are the Dodgers, and they're throwing everyone the money. The Diamondbacks are spending more money than, something that spends a lot of money. So, and then there was the Padres doing what they did last offseason. So
right.
It's not looking like it's going to be a cakewalk into the playoffs like we've been hoping for the past couple of years. It looks like it's going to be a real nose to the grindstone kind of battle. And with the way the Nationals roster is constructed right now, they're missing some key pieces that you would need to really have a complete team like these teams that we just mentioned. I mean, right now the Nationals are 5th, probably ranked, I would say, like in a power rankings, maybe 5th in the National League.
Yeah, I haven't given it too much thought, but they would unequivocally be behind the starting off. They're behind the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Cardinals, right?
Yeah, Dodgers, Cubs, and Cardinals. Yeah,
like no doubt about it. And then you make arguments for the Mets. You make arguments for the Pirates. You might. Mm-hmm. I mean, so they're without a doubt. And I know some people will like this, that they're not going to be the odds-on favorite, but it's changed in DC, and the expectations have changed along with it.
Right, and with the way the Nationals offseason has gone, where it's been swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and, dribbler down the line, it's really not instilling a lot of hope in you or I. I mean, you've got Ryan Zimmerman, injury risk, huge injury risk. Anthony Rendon, huge injury risk. And as much as we love him, Bryce Harper, huge season, but he also this was the first season he actually stayed healthy.
Yeah.
So, and it was his fourth. So injury risk. You've got Steven Strasburg in a contract year. So, I mean, it's just the window is closing faster than anyone hoped.
Yeah.
So it's scary. And I mean, I love the players, and I really hope they can get it done. And I think Dusty Baker is going to be a good leader of men. But the Nationals are not going to be front runners like we've come to expect for the last 3 years. It's just not. That's not the way it is, like you said. So that's why we're a little bit more ready to grind out a season than we have been. I know the last 3 years we've, win 95 games or whatever, or as idiot me said, win 100 games.
Yeah.
And, you make the playoffs and hopefully something good happens. Now it's going to be, you're looking to win 88 games, and it's going to be a grind. It's not going to be 10-game winning streaks.
But
it's going to be,
I think the change of expectation could make for a lot more fun baseball.
Yeah.
Because when you're watching baseball, what do you want to see? You want to see a good game every night. That's the whole point of baseball. You get home, you have dinner, and you watch baseball because it's on every single night.
Oh, it's the best.
And that's the best thing about baseball, right? So I think that is not necessarily a bad thing. They're not going to be as, powerhousey as they've been before. I think it's going to be a lot more fun to watch from a fan's perspective.
Right. And the Nationals have done much better in recent years when they're not the favorites going into the season. So,
yes.
That'll be good. And I think that there were some fans, me very, very, very much included, in that got cocky and thought the Nationals were going to walk away with it, and they didn't. And it was incredibly, incredibly disappointing. So I think at least right now I'm kind of ready to hunker down. It doesn't mean I don't think they're capable of it, because they absolutely have the talent.
No question.
So I'm hopeful, but it's going to be enjoyable, but I think it might be a little bit more stressful.
Yeah.
For me, at least. So.
I would agree, but that sports are stressful.
Sports are stressful, but yeah, the window's closing, and that's scary. And you see how fast teams like the Cubs have risen, and the Mets have risen. It's, it's a crowded field right now, and with the money that's out there in baseball, you've got teams like Arizona jumping into the fray. So it's interesting, man. It's a very different landscape than it was 3 years ago, just because of the money.
Yeah, the money changes the game. That's what makes it interesting. So you got to enjoy it as a baseball fan. So another thing that I had listed on here, which was pursue another starter. There was an interesting tidbit that came out from Ken Rosenthal today, which was that according to baseball sources, the Nationals are shopping Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I read a bit of the article that he wrote today right before the show, because I wanted to have an idea of what the conversation was. And it was really basically trade Gio Gonzalez for a center fielder, and then sign Wei-Yun Chen, who spent his last few years with the Orioles, was kind of the thought process. Or you don't trade Gio Gonzalez and you sign a guy like Gerardo Parra to play in center field, because we've been used to, the Nationals arm race, these huge arms that the Nationals had.
K Street.
Yeah, which all awesome names, by the way. But those guys aren't there anymore. Max Scherzer obviously is Max Scherzer, and he's going to be very good. Steven Strasburg is going to be very good. And then Gio Gonzalez, he, outside of his one Cy Young, runner-up season, he has proven to be more of a 3 or a number 4 starter in his career, which was always kind of the reasonable place to consider, place him. But he gave us such hope early in his Nationals career that there was a hope that he could be a little bit more than that. And then after that, you've got Joe Ross coming off of a really nice rookie season where he ran out of gas at the end. And then Tanner Roark, who no one really knows who he is. Right. Because of how he was dealt with in 2014 and in 2015.
Right.
So it's going to be, I would be very interested. I'm I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are, and then I have some.
Yeah, I don't really understand trading Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah,
Um, as a 3, 4, 5 pitcher, he's solid. He's left-handed. Uh, I really don't understand how he's not better than Wei Yin Chen, to be honest.
yeah. This is the most like I heard this and I was like, that's interesting. Maybe I don't know the numbers as well as I know the numbers. And then I looked at the numbers and I knew them just as well as I thought I knew the numbers. I mean, Gio Gonzalez, like I said, you could make an argument that he has dropped off a little bit in the last couple of years, but his numbers are every number is far and away better than anything Wei Yin Chen is able to provide. And he's a guy that's under team control for all of 16 and has team options for 17 and 18 and he's a left-handed pitcher who throws really hard and has a nice strikeout to walk ratio. He walks a lot of guys, but he strikes out so many that he's got a nice strikeout to walk ratio.
Right. And
So
what I really don't think I get is if the Nationals want Wei Yin Chen, if the Lerners want Wei Yin Chen, just go get Wei Yin Chen.
yeah. Okay, so this is funny. So usually we talk about a lot of these things before the show, and we end up finding out that we agree, and we end up doing this anyway. But this is something we hadn't talked about at all, and we still completely agree. Because my whole argument that I had written down here, because I wanted to make sure I made the point, was if you add Chen and then keep Gio, then all of a sudden that becomes a fairly decent bullpen.
Right.
A fairly decent rotation.
Yeah, I mean, that gives you a little bit more depth front to back.
Exactly. And it gives you the ability for Joe Ross to not kind of come out gangbusters. If he's having issues, you send him back down to AAA. Or Tanner Roark, same situation. You decide if you want to make him a bullpen guy, which I think he should be, but that's a whole other thing. And really focus on the rotation. And then you have, at some point soon, you have Lucas Giolito that should be making an impact, which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to see him in 2016 at some
I
point.
think so too.
But what do you think has changed with the Nationals, I guess, viewpoint on Michael A. Taylor?
You know, I don't know that anything has changed with the viewpoint.
Yeah.
I think Denard Span was hurt, and they had to say all the things they had to say about him because he was their guy, and they knew he was going to be. So I'm not sure anything changed from their perspective. I think they always knew what every scout will tell you, including our friend Ryan Sullivan, who we asked this question before and kind of said about what he thought Michael Taylor was going to be. And basically, he's going to be a guy that's not going to make a whole lot of contact, that's above average defensively. And I think, and if Ryan listens to this and I got it wrong, I apologize. I don't have time to look at the numbers. I think he said something along the lines of a really good season for him would be like 25 home runs and hitting 260.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like that's
the breakout season. Yeah.
And that's like the best case scenario. Michael A. Taylor is not, he's very good defensively.
Right.
And he has a very good arm. And that's really the end of his skill set as a, his elite skill set, I should say.
Right.
The other stuff is going to be average to below average, and that's fine if you have other people filling in the roster, but the Nationals don't have that right now. So I think that they looked at it, and I think they've been trying to make that move the whole time. I think they probably were involved in conversations with Span because why wouldn't they be? But they also knew the medicals because he was hurt when he was on the team, and they weren't going to overpay for him. And I can't fault them for that.
And I doubt that they would be willing to go 3 years.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what the Nationals have always balked at. They've never balked at money. They've always balked at years. That's just the way it is. So
it's interesting. I'm not thrilled with the options they're looking at for center field really at all. It's a lot in the same way of Murphy. I mean, it's just, we wanted to get someone and we didn't get the guys we wanted, but we still want to get someone.
Yeah.
So
I agree. What you don't like the thought about Gerardo Parra?
No, not so much. I'm not sold on him.
We were sold on him years ago.
Years ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's one reason I brought it up. Anybody who has a long-term memory both will remember that Craig and I were fairly high on him. He was coming off of a nice year, and he had very good defensive years. But I think a lot of that subsided, and I'm not as high on him now as I was either.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see the point in making a drastic move such as trading a quality, affordable left-handed starter for a center fielder who honestly might not even be better than Michael A. Taylor.
I totally agree.
So I don't know. It's just it just is surprising to me. Just in the same way the Murphy thing was. It's just they wanted to get someone, so they're going to get someone.
Right.
They didn't get the people they wanted, so they're on fourth and fifth choices. So I don't know. It doesn't make that much sense to me personally, but that's why I'm sitting in my basement podcasting. I guess.
Exactly. And not in the front office.
Right, exactly.
So
what do you think about Desi? Where do you think he's going to land?
I think that I always thought that he would land. I think I tweeted this at some point, but if not, I said it to somebody that I always thought he would land with the Padres or the White Sox. Reports now start coming through that conversations with the Padres are happening.
Yes.
So that seems like a really reasonable landing spot for him, and I think that's a place where he could go and do very well. And so I think that would be a great place for him. I think he probably ends up there.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that the second the Trey Turner trade was complete after the draft, I think it was, or after June, or I don't remember exactly when it was, reports started coming out that the Padres were interested in someone like Ian Desmond, which I just found, it just tickled me.
Yeah.
It just tickled me.
Someone like Ian Desmond.
Yes.
Someone,
But I think there was a great point made on the Effectively Wild podcast about Ian Desmond. Sometimes it's nice to be the only one of your kind on the market, such as a shortstop, but that also means that only one team in baseball is looking for a shortstop, and that's the team he came from.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
Everyone else kind of already has one. So it diminishes his market, and I really don't think he's going to get the money he wanted to get, and it's a shame. But I think he would do well in San Diego. Being such a clubhouse leader, he deserves to be in weather like San Diego.
You're damn right.
That's for sure.
Who doesn't want to be able to sign a contract to play in that?
Yeah, so hopefully he signs soon, and obviously we wish him the best. But yeah, I see Padres as well. It's the only team that fits. It's the only team that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's kind of the situation. That's kind of how I looked. I was like, I literally, when I was trying to come up with where I thought he might land, I kind of said, all right, so who doesn't have a shortstop?
Right.
And it was basically those two teams, and I think the Marlins, because I didn't think that Echeverria was going to be a long-term thing.
Correct.
And I don't think there's any way Ian Desmond would decide to play in Miami, but I could be wrong. But
I like that we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. This is fun.
I know, it's so good. Speaking of Marlins, though, I wanted to make a quick statement that Dan Jennings has joined the front office staff as a special assistant to Mike Rizzo. And I find that to be a very interesting signing. If you remember, Dan Jennings was a confidant and front office guy with the Marlins under the worst owner in baseball, Jeff Loria. And then because he was so well liked by Loria, after they fired their manager, they made him the manager, and then he became too close with the players because that's what you're supposed to do as a manager, and then Jeff Loria fired him. So Mike Rizzo kind of swooped in. Dan Jennings has apparently had a long-term scouting eye, and he'll be looking at the Washington Nationals scouting organization. So it'll be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I like it. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I why not?
Yeah,
why not? And he's a guy with managerial experience, so who knows? So before we get to questions, we are gonna talk about something that's not particularly Nationals related, but was big in the news this week, and that's obviously the 2016 Baseball Hall of Fame inductions.
Yes.
So I know that Craig and a couple of the writers at thenatsblog.com decided uh, to share their ballots and their reasoning, and I kind of just said, "Yeah, what Craig said," because
Yeah,
I didn't want
think
to just
about it.
repeat the same things because we have very
Right.
similar opinions on this. So I'm going to let Craig take it away.
Yeah, I won't say too much. It was a very interesting year for the Hall of Fame for the Baseball Writers Association. They cut over 100 voters from the ranks this year. People that had the lifetime vote that haven't followed baseball since the '80s and such. That really just couldn't speak to the way baseball is right now, and that didn't really keep in touch with baseball. So that saw some changes happening a little bit, but Ken Griffey Jr., who we could go on and on about how wonderful he is, um, highest voting percentage ever, 99.3%. So happy to see him. He's going to be the first player to go into the Hall of Fame with a Mariners cap on, which I think is really cool. There was a lot of talk about him maybe going in with a backwards cap, but when he was asked about it yesterday, he said he was too proud to be the first Mariner cap in the Hall, and it was really important for him
That's
to
really
do
cool.
that. So I think that was a great answer. Love Ken Griffey Jr. Everyone loved him growing up. He was our generation. I grew up in Seattle watching him play, and I mean, he was my number two favorite player of all time. And it's just a crying shame that once he hit 30 and was in Cincinnati, he just got hurt and just couldn't do it anymore. It's just super sad. Um, but I'm really happy to see him in the Hall of Fame. It was without a doubt. And then real quick on Mike Piazza, I mean, between you and me, Joe, he used PEDs, right?
Yeah, between you and me and everybody else,
I
um,
mean,
it's this is a debate that I get into frequently with people who decide that they will not vote for Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens, um, or any of the other people who were indicted in the era, and you can't know everybody who used, and to say we caught you and didn't catch the other ones, so we're going to vote for these people. It just seems so arbitrary and so holier than thou, and it Mike Piazza played in an era, and whether he did or did not, I quite honestly just do not care.
I don't care at all.
I just do not care. I
Right.
I I used to really care, and then I someone asked me why, and I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
it's
such a silly thing.
it really is. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, all of you on Twitter, which I think is probably a favorite pastime of several of you. Um, he used, right? I mean, that's common knowledge.
I so he my understanding is he used a thing that is illegal now that was not illegal then.
Okay.
That is, if I remember correctly, that's the thing that makes it like the public knowledge is no, whether he used something else, who the hell knows? And again,
This
I
this
don't really care.
whole arbiter, the Baseball Writers Association being arbiter of what's right in the integrity of the game, I just find sickening.
And,
Um,
and that's the most frustrating thing. And good for them for kicking a bunch of people off.
right.
But
But happy for him. He obviously deserves to be there. I said
sure,
in my post on the Nats blog, he is probably the second best offensive catcher of all time. And I'm going to go ahead and say that he actually is the best offensive catcher of all time. Um, he was phenomenal. He was absolutely unbelievable.
yep,
And I've said this before, using any drug or performance enhancing anything doesn't help you hit a baseball.
yeah, it may help you hit it a little harder,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to be able to hit a baseball.
Next year looks good for Tim Raines,
God, I hope so.
which is great, which is fantastic. I'm really excited for him and his what'll be his last year. Edgar Martinez made a nice big jump, which Edgar's another one I could go on and on and on and on about how much I absolutely adore him and how he's the greatest designated hitter of all time because he's the greatest designated hitter of all time. But the last thing I want to say about the Hall of Fame is that next year, former Nats great Ivan Rodriguez will
Yes.
be up for the first time, and if elected, which once again we'll see whether his performance enhancing drug links kind of weigh him down for at least the first ballot, but he would be the first player to go into the Hall of Fame with Washington NL on his plaque, which would be really cool. So
Yes, and that's a thing that would be easy to forget. And I think he'll definitely make it. I don't.
Yeah, I hope so.
But it's one of those things that I don't think he'll be a first balloter just for the reasons that you said. But he's the kind of catcher who maybe should be. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Real quick, quick response to Jonathan Thang about Piazza. Piazza was a really good defensive catcher.
Yes, he was.
He actually was. He had a candy arm, which sucks, but he was a great pitch caller and a great blocking catcher. He just had a noodle arm. So I think he got a bad rap as a defensive catcher. So there's that.
I would say so. And one of my favorite things about Mike Piazza, I have to say, you know what round he was drafted in?
63rd?
62nd.
Dang it.
He was a 62nd round draft pick.
They don't even have that many rounds anymore.
1390 overall. That's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah, they don't even have those rounds anymore.
So that's just a cool story in and of itself. And I love those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So on finishing up that note, we've got all of your wonderful questions, and so it's our favorite segment of the show. And we've got about 7 or 8 minutes to go through some things. So
yeah, let's go quickly.
We're going to go rapidly. Our new intro producer, Josh, asks, who plays center field on opening day?
Right now, it's Michael Taylor, but who knows?
I think it will be Michael Taylor.
Yeah.
Personally.
Bleh.
On the same point, but Jacko Beam asks, and this is what I kind of wanted to come back and talk about, can we ever truly like Daniel Murphy, he asks.
I hope so.
Yeah. That's a good enough answer for me.
Yeah, I hope so.
Me too. Because I had the exact same reaction that you had to Yunel Escobar, and I did end up liking him very much.
Yes, Yunel turned his game around. So
indeed. Also by Adam, and this is one of my favorite questions. He said, this seems like the first real year there have been major losses felt by the fan base. Will things get weird?
I think things are already weird.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, things are already very, very strange. I mean, this is going to be the first season the Nationals have been in existence where number 20 is not going to be Ian Desmond, or excuse me, where Ian Desmond will not be within the organization. Because he was 6 for a while, I think. Yes,
he was 6, and Frank Robinson was 20.
Yes.
But I think that ultimately it's a new team in many ways, as Jacko Beam says, and I think a lot of that is due to it's an older team now. Like, this team has been around for 11 full seasons, and as you start to be around for a team, yeah, you know what? You start to feel these things more because players have been around for longer. Early in the first couple of years, when you had players that had been in the organization, like Brian Schneider, but that organization was in Montreal, nobody cared.
Right.
But when you start to have people that start to they've been with the team for a long time, the next big one to come up will either be Jason Worth or Ryan Zimmerman, probably. Yeah. And that's really going to suck. And those things are going to become more common. And I think that
for me, it's going to be Strasburg next year.
Well, yeah, that's true too. I didn't even think about that. That's true. That's next year.
But, I mean, if you look at the Nationals' brief history, they've had one player who had even just one superstar season whose name wasn't Ryan Zimmerman, and that was Alfonso Soriano. Right. And I remember there was a lot of unhappiness when he didn't stay in DC. And that was just after one season. But if you look at the history, I mean, there were some terrible teams in there. And up until this current core of Worth, Zimmerman, Desmond really took shape. I mean, Desmond wasn't even a solid major leaguer until I want to say 2010, maybe.
Desmond?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was in the majors, but I
It
think
was
he
2010 or 11.
yeah, he wasn't established as a major leaguer until then. So this current core started 5, 6 years ago,
Yeah,
but
it was 10.
in
You're
those
right. 10.
first 5 years, they had Ryan Zimmerman being amazing, and then one amazing season from Alfonso Soriano, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we haven't been faced with a problem like this before. So
And
it's already weird.
And it's a thing as a fan base that we're going to have to learn how to deal with. Their organizations deal with it all the time, and as a fan base, we're going to have to learn how to deal with it with a reasoned perspective, because the turnover in baseball is not going away.
Right.
So that's just unfortunately the way it is.
Yep.
Let's see. Kind of talked about that. Feng asked about the kind of furthering the Span thing. Will Span's absence affect the team greatly, do you think?
I think it's already affected the team greatly because he didn't play this past season.
Yep. Exactly what I
So,
was going to say, of course.
of course it is.
Yep.
He didn't play this season, and it kind of gave the Nationals a chance to figure out what was going on, and they still haven't figured out what's going on. So
It appears not.
yeah, so it's already yeah.
And so Carl asks, do you really think we are stuck with Papelbon, and will Drew find another team? I think we are definitely stuck with Papelbon, and I also think Drew will find another team.
I hope Drew finds another team.
Yes, I do too. But I think that he will, and I don't think Papelbon will. I think Papelbon's with the Nats on opening day of next year, because at a certain point you need guys to fill the roles, and as much as we don't like him, and I really do not like him, you need somebody to pitch in the back end of the bullpen, and the Nationals don't have anybody to do that right now.
Yep.
Outside of Drew Storen, who I don't think is going to be on the team. So
Yeah.
I just don't think there's any way. Johan makes a point, which I completely agree with, based on from when we were talking about Steven and Drew. He said if you swing the bat from the right, you weren't on Rizzo's list this season. Nice. And I completely agree. And then Jen, I know that she has lots and lots of fondness for Sonny Gray, tweets in all caps to trade for Sonny Gray. And boy, if you think any of the other trade packages we talked about were going to be expensive, talk to the Cy Young runner-up.
Why couldn't we just get Dansby?
Yeah. Oh God.
Just so I could just say Dansby.
That would be a lot of fun. That would have been a lot of fun. But is it possible to have too much middle infield on a team? I don't know. Maybe
Dansby.
Not. Maybe not. But Dansby.
Inciarte. Dansby.
Yeah. Inciarte would also be a lot of fun to say. Other thing that I want to say, I have thanked Josh for his work with the intro and outro, but I also want to thank Jason Worth's beard, because Jason Worth's beard is our Pied Piper.
Oh, yes, that's right. Official title.
Yes. Craig came up with this. I was going for Moses, but Pied Piper, much better.
Yeah.
So he is officially the Pied Piper of Nats Talk on the Go, if you don't know what that is. But I wanted to put it in the profile, but Twitter character limits, which is a whole other thing that I don't have time to talk about today.
That's right.
So any other quick parting thoughts before we get going?
I missed you guys on Twitter, so
ditto.
Yeah, so it's nice to talk to you guys.
Yeah, Friday. If Fridays work well for people, let us know. I'm sure we can make some arrangements to do some more Friday pods.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, we could figure it out. I do like the Mondays, but it's a good way to start the week. But
yes, it's a great way.
This is a good way to end the week.
It is.
So thank you all for listening. Thanks again to Josh and Josh for putting together the intro and outro, which you will hear if you're listening to this show on the iTunes recorded version of the show. If you're listening live, you will not hear it at the end because Hangouts does not allow for such things. Yep. But thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.
All right.